Princess Diana, the extraordinary story of her life. Chapter 1: A girl born into an aristocratic family. Diana Frances Spencer was born on July 1, 1961, in Sandringham, Norfolk, England, into the famous Spencer family. The Spencers were an old British aristocratic family with a long connection to the royal household. Diana grew up surrounded by beautiful estates, formal traditions, horses, and the expectations that came with her family's social position. But behind that privileged environment, her childhood was not always easy. Her parents, John Spencer and Frances Shand Kidd, had a difficult marriage. When Diana was still young, her parents separated, and their eventual divorce deeply affected the children. Diana was one of 5 siblings. She was especially close to her brothers and sisters, and family relationships became an important part of her life. As a young girl, Diana was known for being shy, gentle, and caring. She did not initially seem destined to become one of the most famous women in the world. She attended boarding schools and later moved to London, where she began living a relatively ordinary life for someone from an aristocratic family. She worked as a nanny and nursery assistant and enjoyed spending time with children. Few people could have imagined that this quiet young woman would soon become one of the most recognizable people on earth. Chapter 2: The meeting that changed everything. Diana's life changed dramatically when she became acquainted with Prince Charles, the heir to the British throne. Charles had previously known Diana's family, and their paths crossed through Britain's upper social circles. Diana was still very young when their relationship began attracting attention. The public quickly became fascinated by the possibility of a future king marrying a young aristocratic woman. Their relationship developed rapidly. In February 1981, Charles and Diana announced their engagement. The announcement created enormous excitement around the world. Diana suddenly found herself at the center of international attention. She was only 20 years old. Millions of people watched her every move. Newspapers published photographs of her constantly, and the public became fascinated by her personality, fashion, and appearance. But Diana was entering a world unlike anything she had experienced before. She was not simply marrying a man. She was preparing to become a member of the British royal family. Chapter 3: The Royal Wedding. On July 29, 1981, Diana married Prince Charles at St. Paul's Cathedral in London. The wedding became one of the most famous royal events of the 20th century. Millions watched the ceremony on television, while huge crowds gathered throughout London. Diana wore an enormous ivory wedding dress with a long train, and her appearance immediately became iconic. For many people, the wedding looked like a fairy tale. A young princess marrying the future king seemed to represent a perfect royal romance, but behind the cameras, Diana was entering a complicated world filled with traditions, expectations, and intense public scrutiny. The pressure was enormous. Every expression, every outfit, every public appearance could become a newspaper headline. Diana was learning how difficult it could be to live under the constant attention of the media. Chapter 4: Becoming a Mother. In June 1982, Diana and Charles welcomed their first son, Prince William. 2 years later, in September 1984, their second son, Prince Harry, was born. Motherhood became one of the most important parts of Diana's life. She wanted her sons to experience a childhood that was as normal as possible despite their royal status. Diana took an unusually hands-on approach to parenting for a senior member of the royal family. She took William and Harry on public outings, brought them to places outside the traditional royal environment, and tried to teach them about ordinary people's lives. She wanted them to understand that the world was much bigger than palaces and royal ceremonies. Her relationship with her sons became one of the strongest and most meaningful parts of her life. Chapter 5: The Princess Who Changed the Image of Royalty. As the years passed, Diana became much more than Prince Charles's wife. She developed her own public identity. Diana became famous for her warmth and compassion. She visited hospitals, schools, charities, homeless shelters, and organizations supporting vulnerable people. Unlike some traditional royal appearances, Diana often tried to make genuine personal connections. She would sit with patients, talk to children, hold hands with people, and listen to their stories. Her ability to connect with ordinary people made her enormously popular. She became known around the world as the People's Princess. Her fashion also attracted enormous attention. Everything she wore could become a global trend. But Diana gradually began using her fame for causes she believed were important. Her public work would eventually become one of the most lasting parts of her legacy. Chapter 6: A Marriage Under Pressure. Although the public had seen a fairy tale wedding, Diana and Charles's marriage became increasingly difficult. The couple had different personalities, interests, and expectations. Their relationship was also complicated by circumstances surrounding Charles's previous relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles. Diana struggled with the emotional pressure surrounding her marriage and royal life. The media followed the couple constantly. Photographers waited outside homes, followed vehicles, and searched for stories about their private lives. The intense media attention placed enormous pressure on Diana and the royal family. Eventually, Charles and Diana separated in 1992. Their separation became international news. Despite the breakdown of their marriage, Diana continued her royal duties and charitable work. She increasingly became an independent public figure. Chapter 7: Diana finds her own voice. After the separation, Diana began redefining her life. She became more confident in speaking about issues that mattered to her. One of the most important areas of her work involved humanitarian causes. She supported organizations helping children, people experiencing homelessness, and individuals affected by serious illnesses. Diana also became associated with campaigns surrounding landmines. In 1997, she visited Angola and walked through an area that had been cleared of landmines. The photographs of Diana wearing protective equipment became internationally famous. Her involvement brought enormous attention to the dangers faced by civilians living in areas affected by landmines. Diana had discovered that her worldwide fame could be used to draw attention to humanitarian problems. Chapter 8: The Divorce. In August 1996, Diana and Charles officially divorced. Diana lost the title Her Royal Highness, but she remained Diana, Princess of Wales. She continued to live in the public eye, but her role was changing. She focused increasingly on charitable work and her children. Diana's popularity remained enormous. She was photographed everywhere she went, and her personal life continued to attract global interest. Despite the difficulties she had experienced, Diana appeared determined to create a new chapter in her life. She wanted to be remembered for something more than her marriage. She wanted her work to make a difference. Chapter 9: A New Chapter. By the summer of 1997, Diana's life had entered another period of intense media attention. She was spending time with her sons and continuing her humanitarian activities. She also became involved in a relationship with Egyptian film producer and businessman Dodi Fayed. The media followed their movements closely. Photographers frequently pursued them, searching for pictures and stories. Diana had spent much of her adult life under extraordinary public attention. The constant presence of photographers had become one of the defining challenges of her life. Then, in August 1997, Diana traveled to Paris. Nobody knew that the journey would end in tragedy. Chapter 10: The Tragic Night in Paris. On August 31, 1997, Diana was involved in a fatal car crash in Paris. She was 36 years old. Dodi Fate and the driver, Henri Paul, also died in the crash. Diana was taken to a hospital, but doctors were unable to save her. The news spread around the world. People who had watched Diana's life for years were shocked. Crowds gathered outside Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace. Flowers appeared on streets and outside royal residences. Millions of people mourned. Diana's death became one of the most significant moments in modern British history. Her funeral was watched by millions of people around the world. Her sons, William and Harry, walked behind her coffin during the funeral procession. The world said goodbye to a woman whose life had been followed by millions. Chapter 11: The Legacy of Princess Diana. Diana's life was complicated. She experienced privilege, fame, love, family responsibilities, public pressure, and personal difficulties. But she also used her position to bring attention to people who were often ignored. Her humanitarian work became an important part of her legacy. She demonstrated that a famous person could use their platform to make people notice difficult social issues. Her approach to royal life also influenced the younger generation of the British royal family. Her sons, William and Harry, have continued charitable work and have often spoken about the influence their mother had on them. Even decades after her death, Diana remains one of the most recognizable women of the 20th century. People remember her not only because she was a princess, but because she seemed to make people feel seen. Chapter 12: The Woman Behind the Princess. Princess Diana's story was never simply a fairy tale. She was born into privilege, but she experienced family difficulties. She married the future king, but her marriage eventually ended. She became one of the world's most famous women, but fame brought enormous pressure. She had access to extraordinary wealth and opportunities, yet she devoted much of her public life to people facing hardship. Her greatest impact came from the way she connected with people. She could walk into a hospital room, sit beside a stranger, and make that person feel important. That quality made her different. Diana's life ended far too early, but her influence continued. Her story remains a reminder that public figures are human beings behind the photographs and headlines. She was Diana Spencer. She became Diana, Princess of Wales. And to millions around the world, she became something even more personal, the people's princess. Her life lasted only 36 years, but her story continues to be remembered across generations.